Good evening, everyone. My name is Joshua Escobar, and I'm reading to you tonight from Santa Barbara, California. And I'm from Inland Empire. I'm a queer poet. I used to live in Bedford-Stuyvesant, teach in Jamaica, Queens, downtown Brooklyn, and Jersey City, the 2 years that I lived in New York City. I'm reading to you tonight from my pandemic journal titled Ex-Continent. Originally, it was ex-Los Angeles, like I was dating Los Angeles, and conceptually that made sense at the start of the pandemic. If in side yards a crowd views this ancient traffic and misery entertains that damp motor, lime green, as a beachhead around imps and low Oz, albedo, a jackal invention, deciphering what's visual early summer, the sky here a piece of Neptune, the mountain over the street, as people love and deface distance. All day, desire wrestles behind truth. In the tensions, architecture is able to articulate. Crowds, a field in sudden history, addressed to blood orange trees asleep the colossal sunlight in Jackson Heights. After it rains, logic gazes up at industry, both attracted to the low cost of living sleepily, like their demographics. The hydraulic excavator powered off in the foothills, the dimensions of its folded neck sketched from constellations, its smooth claw modeled after the foot of a trickster god. The grass is not from here. Sleep heavily in the sun, a few handfuls of lush, the rest flecks of copper. The Rupa Hills are a weird arcade, used to rocks moving biochemical variation. Hard feelings, wildflowers, and soil composition, strangely mortal. Their terrain runs against immense nights and unflinching days. Set up the engineers, neon and pink green tags throughout the site in the global economy. On Cahuilla land, by where we live, subject to multiple historical realities biting at each other in slow ramping winds. The barge, the color of grapes, green and red, from the Ecuadorian fabrication. Its earthen hull, obdurate in post-industrial pastels, energetic annex for holograph between hot and intense calling for public work. Not really ready for anything, renting beauty, Toro Canyon blue, above unregimented palm trees and cosms of juniper. Slowness is the medium of catastrophe. Time civilizations have carved out, precipitously habitable pinks, incandescence, cultural mud, spin-offs about offshoots acting like misery is stitched from concessions, glossy reactions. The yellow, the devourer, miracle's consequence, picturesque yet made mechanically, letting up young bodegas, gas stations, an origin ever in question. Teams sleep on the violin, uncomplicated by the mixed pelican. Sloping distinctions updated with no relation despite the pleasure plastic wrapped nature ordains and glitters with along the coast north of summer. We want to stop our cycling through what's normal out of habit, a crucifix with its light on its leg, mounted where work is endlessly indifferent, yet teal and enamel in public. A city map calls for lacks the torque of mystery on the supply side, cemented over by well-off enigmas, rebels by definition, demons to love, to inhabit, or beyond old missions, attaching themselves to skies, ribbed raw out of necessity. Handlebar, relic of expedition, experimental, wrongs of bicyclists, seizing upon waylaid culture, affluence, incompatible with life, except through errands, wakings, sleep virility, tires coming back chewy, if not fresh. Saturday is a social club, bachelorettes at work, passive Angelinos, newlyweds, incoherent regulars with motorcycle liver, haptic species of need, hell running parallel, the tacky honk for parking. Death feels like this. Beautiful crowds about the exhibitionist morning, abundantly isometric, ideally brutal, everyone slowly devastated and faintly realistic. Guia occidentalis in the trellises. The mud green t-shirt exaggerated a release of anything accidentally bleached, this afternoon as plastic as sand, near warehouses where work remains separate from love and love from the indecent. Separate courtesies, dirty plates, sleepless but young enough to mix up what actually a heavily stickered ice chest in the lyrical restraints. Ocotillo, decoratively keyed. Another assumes intimacy for nothing and explains this unassuming splay, consuming fear, predictable longing. Online. Materials are swift by definition. A hill contains a fortress made of brick with rooms in the wings for gunpowder, or a subterranean furnace responsible for wealthy families. Rooms shifting around themselves applaud in a way at the room, unreturnable beside the structure, it assumes. Crowds would reconcile the good and bad therein, but then everything tangent would start to run. On nothing, seated commuters place their interest, eavesdropping and subway cars quickly turning. Unintelligibility takes on a different character, resembling a demon or companion. Though invisible feels unshakable, maybe one of us could stay on the train long enough and really listen. Yet this noise is probably omnipresent enough for everyone to adopt by virtue of having ridden the MTA so long. Even reality needs maintenance. Love and even experience are beyond what anyone can do here. Anyone except mariachis and acrobats and servers, who we all are. During the summer, there might be less of a way, kids biking through the stations, teenagers over a turnstile in a tunnel, sunlight and shade separate overhead. Men wait for dinner, workers between their shifts, their passiveness doubling as calm and rest. Retroactive high from lovers dragging desire up East Beach. The breeze tugs at their mistakes. From love or seated across the street, sharing lesser fixations. There's no difference between nature and queers in the news, wishing for a mouthful of hair or whatever they ask for on their birthday. In Santa Barbara, the sun stops running in the afternoon, shops close and time stops until the next day. On the way home, mangoes and papayas are sold from the back of a truck by guys quieter than my older brother. It's not easy to replace anyone. A pigeon with a twisted feather hops by, commuters wearing similar expressions toward the street. Furniture moved aside, their lessons in confidence useful to anyone embracing their sexuality at first. In detention centers like Adelanto, championed by the local mayor, because it'll repave the roads, children free themselves with cartoons. Life exists that way sometimes, wind in a monkey's hair. To what extent do products constitute our response to everything? Most of our existence is quiet. In front of a warehouse under construction, near where I grew up, wanting a photo of me and the security guard around my age from another continent, both of us sold on the life we want. Endurance, kids eat pizza on a weathered porch. Everywhere, the future feels like a hoax. The same people evade definition, era to era, love oblique, a video game cartridge dug into a field, reality fixing its components, a t-shirt dipped into the cement, buildings made of feelings, a city redistributes disappointments and feuds. One unpacks somewhere offhand, like veterans, the bulk of whom the sun dries. Sketches of life dedicated to cooling, stretches of life engulfed in pleasure. The instances when people rightfully defend addiction, a resource for armies and prisoners and the sick and everyone. Early morning, the civic buildings assert themselves over Jamaica Queens, the volumetric concrete half in sun. Workers pull up to build buildings other families own. Side streets try to evade this barbarism. Through self-serve coffee, buñuelos, and flat screens, the baristas and anchors looking fresh, me fumbling with language, without a sense of terror, briefly dunking the economy to which more and more are arrested in the snow. You can almost hear the dead asking for a future we can handle. Gradually, the terrain comes to embrace uniformity. Everyday old consequences are trickling to happening. If and then a fan left on, people arriving, so that it parts a place which prevents nothing to fake on the wall, contents, showers, optional passengers. Who lives there? Daybreak pans across the surface of the earth. That quality of light soon hides in the stucco or is used with hachchila to tame the possessiveness that endures. Exposed in this sweep, the old in us. Taste avails itself to the rudeness we have about each other. The sky, also a haptic fabrication that distorts and begs. Thanks everyone for listening. This is like my 10th time trying to record this, and thanks for attending the festival, and I hope to connect with you in real life soon.